Everybody, it's Cosmos Solutions 8 here with your daily Google News. And I'm really excited for our guest today. She's got the most impressive resume I think I've seen in a really long time. And her name is Lisa Salvatore. Lisa, how did I do pronouncing that last name?
Perfect.
I did it. Awesome. Well,
Yeah.
Thanks for being here, Lisa. I appreciate you.
You're welcome. Thank you for having me.
Yeah. And I've been LinkedIn stalking you in prep for this call. And I mean, so the thing that I'm most excited to talk to you about before we get into the call tracking metric stuff is your time at AOL. And
Yes.
You were a marketing manager and digital media and in digital media and brand marketing in 2008, which was, I mean, AOL was like the original, that's the OG of the internet right there. So tell me a little bit about that.
Sure. Yeah. That was actually my first dive into digital marketing, was working there. So obviously great experience, great company to be with, to take all that in. I learned a lot. I worked out of their Baltimore office actually, and they had bought advertising.com. So I worked on the AOL team, I worked on the advertising.com team. It was great, but I ran a lot of paid advertising for their owned and operated properties at the time. So it was really great.
Where was that? Help me with the chronology there. Where was that in the AOL Time Warner merger? Was that before or after?
It was after.
Okay. And that was maybe like the master stroke of all business mergers ever. When they got AOL like to, I don't know, bolt right onto Time Warner, because I feel like at the time AOL was on this really sharp decline, or at least was about to hit it. And then they, I don't know who penciled that deal, but it felt like a pretty brilliant one. So what kind of impact did that have for AOL internally?
I think in what we were doing day to day there, it didn't have a lot of impact. I think they had, I don't know exactly what year that happened, but I think they had kind of moved past that. I know when I was there, they were big on the content. So I know they had bought the Huffington Post while I was there. So they were kind of already moving in another direction at that time.
Yeah, I remember AOL running around snapping up content properties like it was going out of style.
Yeah.
That was a sharp move too. I still remember you remember those old, not DVDs, but the old discs that you could pick up like in front of a Walmart, like 3,000 hours or whatever of internet.
Yeah. Dial up.
Yeah, that's exactly right. And then from AOL, it looks like you've had quite a bit in the way of paid media experience, and now you're the senior manager of paid media at CallTrackingMetrics.
That's right.
And we've used CallTrackingMetrics for years. We were actually introduced to y'all through another agency that we used to outsource to. They were our primary white label partner. And at the time, I think CTM was the only call tracking solution that could deliver GCLID properly, which for us is like critically important. So curious as to why CTM made the decision to lean so heavily into paid ads, because there's a lot of channels you can use for call tracking and reporting, but why paid ads specifically? Any idea?
I mean, I wasn't here when that was developed, obviously, but being a part of it now, I know, one of the things we really care about is making lives better for businesses, right? So how can we solve problems for businesses? And I think a lot of businesses do paid advertising, and we really want to help businesses tie the ROI back to their paid, right? If you're going to spend money on advertising, you want to know if it's working. You want to see the value in it. So, I think that's really a focus for us, is to help businesses and advertisers do that.
Yeah, and help me at a high level, just maybe offer a mild explanation of how call tracking metrics works with Google Ads and other paid ad channels.
Sure. Yeah. So, we really help fill the gaps between online and offline advertising, specifically phone call conversions. And kind of like I was saying earlier, like we really help eliminate that conversion blind spot, so businesses can really see the value of their paid advertising in their phone calls. So one of the ways we do this, like with Google specifically, is we have a true bi-directional integration with Google Ads. So what that means is then conversion data is flowing freely between CTM and Google Ads. And that really allows the advertiser to marry their online and offline attribution worlds. So not only do you have insight into your online phone calls, but your offline as well, from call extensions or call only ads, and then tying those back to the keyword or the search, the click that led to that call. And then where there's more value is then CTM, we can send those conversions back into Google Ads. So then you can optimize off of them. So rather than optimizing off every phone call to your business within Google, you can use CTM data to optimize off the ones that really only provide value to your business.
So I want to sit on that and meditate on it for just a minute, because I think it's so important. And if you're watching this video, especially if you're an agency, the big catastrophic error that I've seen agencies make is they like to use a time-based conversion metric where they say anything over 45 seconds is a lead. And the problem with that is we've seen over and over and over and over again that not only is that not true, but you're giving Google false positives. And a false positive might be the dumbest thing that we can offer a machine learning mechanism, because you're just sending it off in the wrong direction. You're like, give me more of what I don't want. And so the ability and it's not just call tracking metrics, it's the paradigm that I want people to assume, because I'm not a CTM affiliate. I'm not here to just push CTM. It happens to be my tool of choice, but the paradigm I want people to assume is that we need squeaky clean conversion data. So it needs to be like, I want more of this exact lead, and call tracking metrics gives us the ability to go in. We've got a team that scores manually. It's a pain. It's a pain in the hindquarters to do this work. Like, you listen to all the calls and then you score them, and then you offer that score back into Google from a conversion perspective. And especially for local service-based businesses, it makes all the difference, because you now know the hierarchy in terms of lead quality. I'm curious, is there, and this is unfair of me to ask, because if it's not on the feature roadmap or anything, don't tell me, but is there anything in Q that would help with the scoring process, like, AI driven identification of, quality calls, certain, you know what I'm getting at? Like, I've seen people talk a little bit about like the automated listening tools where it's like, oh, they use positive language, so we're going to mark this as a more positive call, or any of those things in the pipeline?
I can't speak to I can't speak to what's on our roadmap. I couldn't hook you up with one of our product experts though, if you want to do a follow-up. But yeah, in terms of call scoring, you can do you can automate that or do it manually. And you can use keyword spotting as well to look for spoken words during a phone call, and then use some of that automation to help with that.
Okay. And I think that's a really big pro tip too. Keyword spotting. I'm not familiar with that term, but it makes perfect sense. And what is, I haven't used call tracking metrics for like transcription or anything. Is that a feature inside of the application?
It is. Yeah.
That's awesome. So right now I've got my team actually listening to every single call, but we could pull down the transcripts and then kind of use that as the front line of defense.
Yes, exactly. Yeah.
That's great. Yeah. And then just talk to me a little bit, if you can, about some of the trends that you're seeing, anything that would be helpful for our subscribers, like, calls that are answered within this period tend to qualify better, or calls that take this long, or, any of that data that you have available?
Yeah. It's hard to really identify those trends, because we work with so many companies across so many industries, B2B, B2C. So there really isn't one tried, like there aren't even a few I could really point to. But what's great about call tracking metrics is that you can use it to, like businesses, customers can use it to identify the trends you're asking about in their accounts. So actually, we were just talking about keyword spotting. So, a good example there, we were working with a home services company, and they uncovered through keyword spotting that a lot of prospects calling in were asking about a product that they didn't offer. So, and we've have a lot of examples of that. So, they got into it, they got into the product, and they can directly attribute that revenue growth back to using that tool. And I think another example, here at CTM, like our marketing team, we use CTM. We're CTM users too, which is really cool to use your own product. And, I think for us, we were able to identify some trends in our inbound calls, based, where they were coming from, which like paid, organic. And then using that, like we could route those calls to where we wanted them to go, right? Whether a specific team or an individual. So it's really, there's like always trends to uncover in CTM. And I think it's really once you get in there and start hearing what's happening on your calls, like you said, and it just varies by businesses, but you can really uncover some trends there.
Yeah. So you just dropped, I think, a pretty solid value bomb. If a company has a multifaceted service base, you can route the calls directly to as close to the end result as you possibly can right away, because there's nothing more annoying than calling a company and it's like press one for
Mm-hmm.
But if I know, I've got these, let's say I'm an attorney and I've got these 5 practice areas, and you've chosen my family law practice area, and you've actually called me from the family law landing page, and CTM can deliver a specific number to that page based off of the source. Now I can get you as close to my family law practice attorney as I possibly can, like dial directly to that person.
Exactly. And so it creates it's a more seamless experience for your customers, and then a better experience for your business as well, right? It's a lot less manual tasks. So your team can really just focus on the conversation.
Yeah, that's really brilliant.
Yeah.
I love that idea. One of the things that we use CallTrack, and this is dangerous for me to say, but one of the things that we use it for is to protect ourselves from our clients. Because I can't tell you how many times clients are like, oh, the leads aren't good. Like something's wrong. And then I'm like, oh, okay. And then what I'll do, and it's a little passive aggressive, but we'll hop on the call. We're on Zoom together, and I'm like, okay, let's pull up your CallTrackingMetrics. And I cannot begin to tell you how often, and it's always embarrassing for the client, which I kind of like, forgive me for saying, I'm like, all right, well, you didn't answer this call. You didn't answer this call. You didn't answer this call. And then we'll get things you kind of mentioned earlier, just in our keyword spotting, we'll get things to where we'll run competitive campaigns. So I'm bidding on a competitor's name. And we actually had one specific instance where my clients, whoever was answering the phone, their receptionist, received a call from somebody looking for that service, but specifically from a competitor. And because the receptionist hadn't been trained properly, she was like being a very kind and empathic person, but she was helping them find the competitor's contact info. She goes, oh, you know what? Let me look that up for you. And he's like, oh no, what are you doing? So it's nice to be able to see, like, you lift the curtain and we end up becoming something akin to like sales coaches. It's like, well, this is what you need to do in these particular instances. Otherwise, you're not going to be able to make it work. So I think it's a huge value prop for agencies, again, specifically, just to be able to see what it is your customer is doing after the click.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, 100%.
With CallTrackingMetrics, there is a privacy concern, right? Because we're recording calls and every state is different. And you have like one party consent states and 2-party consent states. What's your recommendation there? Should we just like blanketly, offer the whisper message, and anything else people can do to mitigate those risks?
Good question. Yeah, I mean, when you use CTM, right, you're collecting valuable first-party data, right, from your prospects and customers. And you want to be able to use that effectively and correctly. This is obviously super important for marketers. I mean, it really always has been, but more so probably now than ever, right? So as a business owner, advertiser, I mean, it's really the responsibility is on you to make sure your privacy policy and cookie policies are up to date, so that customers know how their data is being used, and then so they can opt out if they choose to. So not only does it protect you as a business, but it helps build trust with your customers too, right? The more they understand how their data is being used, the more they will trust your business.
Awesome. Talk to me a little bit, if you don't mind, about the best kept secrets. Like, you've already taught me about a feature that I didn't know was in CallTrackingMetrics. What are the features that, or what's the functionality that people don't know about that you wish they did?
So I have a few, but I don't know if I would call them secrets, because we really do encourage our customers to use these features. I don't think we have anything that's hidden. That being said, there's so much you can do with CTM. So if you think it can be done, it can be done. But let me go through a few. So I think one of my favorites is the form reactor. So with Form Reactor, you can track form submissions on your site, and then within CTM to the exact visitor, and then add channel with attribution that led to the fill. And then with CTM, you can create automatic, you can immediately trigger contact back to that lead. So you can either do that with a text message or an immediate callback. And I love this because, I think speed to lead obviously is very important, especially for a lot of industries. So I think a good example of this would be like an appointment confirmation, right? For maybe a medical office or something like that. And then, yeah, I just, the form reactor, you can track it the same way you track calls in CTM. It just gives you, especially for marketers, it gives a lot of insight, and there's just a lot of automation that can be used with that. Another one that is really cool is a look back conversion trigger. So this is really popular with a lot of our e-commerce customers. So this allows you to attribute revenue to the original touch point that led to the sale. So that means if somebody came to your website on the first day of the month and they clicked on your, then they clicked on, they clicked on your ad, went to your site, called you, they didn't make a purchase, then they came back today, 2-3 weeks later, and went directly to your site and made a purchase. We can search the last 30 days and attribute that conversion to the first touch point. So it really allows you to tie the revenue to what really led to that sale. So yeah, so like, that's okay. So I guess what I'm saying is like, if they called and spoke to somebody at your company and they really did a great job selling this product to them, but they weren't exactly ready to make that purchase that day, but they did 2 weeks later, you can attribute it back to that original touch point.
That's brilliant. And so how does that, is CallTrackingMetrics integrating with like, Shopify, the e-commerce CMS? How does it know that the purchase is taking place?
Yes, exactly. We do have integrations with Shopify and Magento, or it can be done through our API as well.
Wow, that's awesome. So I didn't know that existed either. We need to use that.
Yes, it's very cool.
Yeah. So one of the things, and again, this is maybe more for people that are watching, but for e-commerce accounts specifically, especially high ticket e-commerce accounts, what we've noticed is, and I've got a client that does medical devices, and they have 8,000 SKUs, and some of them are as simple as like the light bulb that needs to, be screwed into replace the lamp or whatever. And those are easy to sell online because they're $12. But then there's also a $30,000, exam lane. And those tend not to be sold online. Somebody wants to call for them, but it's the online ads that are triggering those calls. And for e-commerce stores that aren't taking the revenue from the call and adding it back into Google Ads, A, you're not reporting on your ROAS properly, but B, you're also not telling Google to go get you more of those specific leads, which are your most important leads. So taking CallTrackingMetrics and bolting it onto an e-commerce campaign becomes critically important, because otherwise you're blind to, the big shots in the pocket from a revenue perspective.
Exactly. Yeah.
Awesome. Well, I appreciate the insight into that. You mentioned some of the integrations. What other integrations does CallTrackingMetrics have that are worthy of mention?
Sure. Yeah. So we integrate with a number of tools. If you, on our website, we have an integrations page, so I recommend checking that out. But yeah, so we integrate with HubSpot, Zendesk, Stripe, Gong, Slack, Zapier, is on and on. So, and we don't just integrate with it. We try to be strategic in a way that really helps you as a user of CTM to get more out of your data, right? So, in a lot of ways, CallTrackingMetrics is a perfect complement to these other tools for better workflow optimization, insights into data. So that's really, obviously each one varies based on what you're using it for and doing with the data. But yeah, we have even more. So Salesforce, forgot to mention that. So yeah, I highly recommend checking out our site.
Yeah, so you kind of have to integrate with Salesforce if you're going to do anything, because they're just such a beast of a, they've swallowed
Yeah.
up the market share. And CTM does a lot with SMS, right? Like there's a whole suite of SMS features and
Yes.
functionality.
Yes. A lot of our customers are using text to generate leads. And texts have a really high open rate. So I think it's becoming more and more popular to drive conversions for business and have those conversations with customers. And with CTM, like just like forums and calls, and you can track text as well and chats too, all together. And similar with forums and text, there's a lot of automation features. We do bulk SMS and MMS, and we also have short codes available.
That's all. So we don't use CTM for SMS at all right now, but I honestly didn't realize that you had bulk texting features available.
Yes.
That's really cool. So one mild pro tip for anybody watching is we use CallTrackingMetrics for two-factor authentication. It's a pain because, I've got 50 employees, and if somebody needs to log into a Google account, and they're all over the world, so I've got somebody in London that's trying to log into a Google account that I normally log into from Phoenix, and Google wants two-factor authentication on everything. If I'm the one getting the text message and they're waking me up at 2:00 in the morning saying, hey, Kasim, what's the thing? So we've got verification numbers instead of CallTrackingMetrics that drop into Slack. So if you need to use two-factor authentication, you go use a CallTrackingMetrics number, push it into Slack, and now anybody in the team with access to Slack can get access to that account using the two-factor auth.
Very cool. Love
which
it.
I thought was something of a little hack.
Yeah.
So to close it out, what are the things, like any last words for potential CTM users? If there's somebody who's on the fence, how do you push them over to your side?
Yeah. I think, like I kind of was mentioning earlier, CTM is such a great complement to so many tools that you're likely already using today. So, Google Ads, right? Like, let's tie the revenue back to what you're doing. Salesforce, we have a soft phone integration. You can integrate our soft phone into Salesforce. You can view all your call details while you're in Salesforce from CTM. I mean, there's so much, so many more insights you can get using CallTrackingMetrics. You mentioned earlier coaching teams, right? It's a unified communications platform. So you can really use it to communicate with your customers in their preferred method. You can also use it to align and coach teams, right? So there's just so much you can do, and so many ways a business can grow using CallTrackingMetrics. So yeah, I encourage, visit our website, calltrackingmetrics.com. We'd love to give anyone listening a product demo and really show you all the ways you could grow your business.
Yeah. And, for the final plug on my end, it's cheap. Like it's not an insurmountable cost either in y'all's monthly fee or in the usage fee. I have clients, the clients pay for the usage, we pay for the software. And, it's like $1.50 a number and a couple of cents a minute. And every now and then I get somebody who kind of squawks at that. And I'm like, look, you want this bill to be as high as it possibly can, because that means that your phone's ringing off the hook.
Right. Yeah, exactly.
Which is a good problem to have. Lisa, thank you so much for taking the time out with me. I really appreciate you.
You're welcome. It was great chatting with you.
Yeah. And if you're watching this video, like, comment, subscribe, do all the stuff. I shoot a video every single day, and we have awesome experts on, just like Lisa. And appreciate all y'all, and we'll see you tomorrow.
Bye.
Thank you so much for watching. If you enjoyed the video, please give us a thumbs up. That lets YouTube know we actually know what we're doing. We shoot a video every single day. So if you want to be notified, hit that subscribe button. And if you have any input, don't hesitate to hit us up in the comments. We'd love to hear from you. We get very little human interaction. Thanks for supporting our channel, and hopefully I'll see you tomorrow.